Hello, this is Jamie Mitchell, and we are back with another episode of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast, going over all the posts on the Libertarian Uncensored subreddit. And let's get into it. So first we have, if you get to release carbon emissions in the sky, I get to use plastic straws, and that's a cross post from the Political Compass meme subreddit that I made, and it's two stick figures, and one of them says, I hate paper straws, and the other says, paper straws help the environment, you douche. And then in the next panel, the other guy says, last time I checked, burning the American flag isn't the best way to be a tree hugger. And my response to that was, agreed. People should be able to burn whatever flag they want and use whatever straw they want as long as it's their property, you know? And that's my thoughts on that issue. I personally think people should protect the environment and do what's good for the environment, but I don't want to force people to do what they don't want to do, and that's the very libertarian ethos, you know, just let people do what they want, let people justify what they want to, and don't tell them what they can and can't do. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have, by calling the protesters terrorists, are we going to start abusing their basic rights, just like when J6 protesters were called insurrectionists, from Jack Hunter on Twitter, and I posted that, and I said, most people are fine with authoritarianism as long as it's against the outgroup. And, you know, I don't really care for the J6 protesters, but with that being said, it doesn't justify the state abusing them, just like it doesn't justify the state abusing the current pro-Palestine protesters. You know, I remember when the left-wing positions began stuff like the prison at Guantanamo Bay, but now apparently if they're in the outgroup, you know, they want the government to abuse them, and I don't think that's very libertarian. You know, the government, you know, if the government treads on anyone, you know, that's not good, even if they are, stupid ideologues from the other side. You know, that's why it's always important to remember that it's not red versus blue. It's the state, but rather the state versus you. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Lars Mapstead announces Larry Sharpe will be joining his campaign as his vice presidential candidate from Nuance. It's posted from Nuance Matters, and that's tweets from Lars Mapstead on Twitter. And I personally think that'll be a good ticket, but we'll see if they get the nomination later this month, and that's my thought on that issue. Then I have a feeling the LP is going to end up making Trump its 2024 nominee or withdraw from the election and endorse him from Shadow Lear, and that's the self-post they made. I'm not a right libertarian, I'm actually a far leftist, but I feel bad for the LP being taken over by a white nationalist. I think since the Mises Caucus invited Trump to the National Convention because he wants to win over libertarian voters, they're going to end up making him the nomination, and we're endorsing him. Most anti-Mises Caucus libertarians know they are actively sabotaging the LP to help the Republicans, so I figured a lot of you would probably agree with me. And I don't know if that's going to happen, but we'll see. I guess we'll have to see what happens at the convention later this month. I personally would never go for Donald Trump, even if he does get the Libertarian Party nomination, since he already showed that the swamp and the special interests are just going to grow under him, like they're going to grow under Obama or Biden as well. So it doesn't really matter if he gets the Libertarian Party nomination or not. We tried him and he didn't work, just like how we tried Biden and he didn't work. You know, that's why I think it's time to try something else. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have the Nation article from 2 years ago predicted the goal of the Mises Caucus wanted to help re-elect Trump from another one from Shadow Lear, and that's they shared it from a Nation article. In a report for Hate Watch, an allegation of the Southern Poverty Law Center, Creed Newton has assembled evidence circumstantial but suggested that the Mises Caucus is aligned with the Trumpist Republicans. David Valente, an active Libertarian Party member since 2012, who used to be an alternate member of the Libertarian National Committee, told Hate Watch the burst of what's going off the MC is to sabotage the LP or silent over the next few years for Donald Trump. Ashley Slade, never just affected Libertarian Party member and former chair of the Massachusetts Libertarian Party, also spoke of Hate Watch, characterized the Mises Caucus as a tool of the Republican Party. And I guess I would kind of agree with that. I definitely do think, you know, the Mises Caucus is a bit of an asterisk for the Republican Party, I would say. But with that being said, I definitely do think they are overhated by a lot of the normie libertarians. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have revealed Tyson Foods dumps millions of pounds of toxic pollutants into U.S. rivers and lakes from TheGuardian.com by Zachness. And I don't think that's good. And I think that's an example of corporate authoritarianism and why we need to hold the corporations accountable for when they pollute the environment. But with that being said, you know, If people do want to justify using force, I think they should be able to. With that being said, um, ultimately, I would think the best way would be to use nonviolence and just not buy any of their products, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Carrie Lake suggests supporters strap on a Glock to be ready for 2024 from NBCNews.com by Swamp Yankee Dan, and I didn't comment on that one, but I definitely think if she wants to say that, she'd be able to. And I think if people want to have use firearms to defend themselves, they should be able to. With that being said, I definitely do think this is the fear mongering rhetoric that you increasingly just see on the left and the right, and it's just getting very tiresome at this point. It's like it's been 8 years of this. Either have the Civil War or don't. That's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have the most insane dictatorship on earth, Turkmenistan from Clorox, and that's a YouTube video from Casual Scholar. And they added the code of personality ultimate result. And I said in the video, it says Niyazov won the first presidential election with 98.3% of the vote. And I said in response, people will say with a straight face that having one choice for dear leader is tyranny, but having two is freedom. And that's a quote from Michael Malice. And yeah, I definitely do think Turkmenistan is not a very libertarian country, but in a country like Turkmenistan, the difference between that and the U.S. is that in Turkmenistan they don't have to hide their authoritarianism, while in the U.S. they do, and that's what I would think is most important to remember as the difference between the two countries, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Libertarian Party NH on Twitter, and that's a post for Narco Federation, and that was them linking to a tweet, and the tweet from them is, we are libertarian nationalists, not ethno nationalists. We must secure the existence of our people and a future for libertarian children. And that was them quoting Indiana Joyer. Oh, that's the LP hosting ethno. It is. And our Narco Federation added, the LPNH is really selling the ethno nationalist agenda, huh? Hopp's disastrous influence on American libertarianism. The guy convinced people was libertarian, monarchist, and ethno nationalist. And I said, think you're reading too much into an edge post. I don't really care for all the edge posting either, but they're just kind of 4chan edgelords. People really need to start telling the difference between those types and actual Nazis. 95% of Nazis these days are just edgy 4chan incels. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have the Springfield City Council in Massachusetts collaborated with a high school to shut down traffic for hours so students can install permanent pride crosswalks on the roads from Libs of TikTok on Twitter, and I posted that. And I said, I think it's interesting that groups like the Satanic Temple, who always hate whenever the state does something involving Christianity and uses that to justify having the state do things with Satanism, are always quiet whenever it comes to the state doing anything involving LGBTQ. It's almost like they don't care about separation of ideology in the state, but rather only separation of ideology that they don't like in the state. LGBTQ is not necessarily a religion, but, it's still an ideology. And, I don't think we should be painting any ideological flags on using public money, public funds, or public resources. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And, yeah, it's definitely treated like an ideology. These as a flag movement, pretty much everything you need to be classified as an ideology. And that's my thoughts on that issue. So, yeah, so that's why I personally don't think we should be drawing pride flags using public or funds or resources, and that's my thoughts there. Then we have How Federal Civil Rights Law Works from LPNH on Twitter, and I posted that, and that was them sharing a list. 1, we notice your workforce has fewer minorities in the applicant pool. 2, if that remains true, we'll sue you for millions of dollars and destroy your company. So next time we check, your workforce has had exactly many minorities as the applicant pool. 3, but you're not allowed to explicitly favor minority applicants over whites. You certainly can't do anything flagrant, like take a quota of minority employees equal to their level of the applicant pool. 4, have fun. And I said in response, civil rights, quote unquote civil rights, is simply just another government excuse for authoritarianism. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And yeah, I personally think people should have the rights, as much rights as they want to give themselves. I don't think the government should be telling them what rights they can and can't do. And that's my thoughts there. I personally don't care. I personally don't care for when Lester Maddox refused to serve blacks in his restaurant, but I absolutely think he should have had the Freedom Association do so if he wanted to. And I don't think that's right. But I don't think the government should be telling people, enforcing these rights for people. Because if the government provides you rights, they're not a right. It's just what the government's giving you, and that's my thoughts on that issue. That's why we need to, I think, to get the government out of civil rights and all that. Even though it sounds like the kind of racist. Oh, get the government out of civil rights, but ultimately, I think the issue there is that anything the government's involved in is going to be innately authoritarian, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have she wasn't fired for sharing the statistics. She was fined because she wasn't fined for sharing the statistics. She was fined because she referred to Afghans as gang rapists, a label not protected by freedom of speech in Germany, but classified as hate speech. From Brian Krasenstein on Twitter, and that was his response to Elon Musk, who quote tweeted and wokeness tweeted, current politician of the AfD party, Marie-Therese Kaiser, was just convicted and fined $6,000+. Her crime, posting just showing the Afghan immigrants are disproportionately committing sexual assault in Germany. And Elon replied, "Are you saying the fine was for repeating accurate government statistics? Was there anything inaccurate in what she said?" Anyway, my response to Krasenstein's tweet was, that still 100% goes against freedom of speech. And Bangy on the subreddit replied to me, "That's not a thing there." And I said, "It's not going to be a thing here in the U.S. too, and ever at this rate." Increasingly people want censorship if they think if they think speech constitutes hate speech or misinformation. Even in the U.S. we have the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which increasingly says the government we're going to censor and fine people for things that can be construed as anti-Semitic, and I don't think that goes in line with the First Amendment. And that's my thoughts on that issue. We need to support free speech, even if it's speech we disagree with or, frankly, is vulgar and we despise it. And that's thoughts there. Then we have the most honest thing the MC has ever done, and that's a tweet, post from Slayer901. That's a picture of a Libertarian Minds Caucus probably endorses Donald Trump for U.S. president. # Take Human Action. And that's just a joke, but they're actually endorsing Michael Rectenwald, I think. But yeah, I do think that some members of the Midas Caucus are kind of up Trump's ass, and I don't really care for that. I don't really care for any libertarian who's up either Trump or Biden's ass, but it seems like a lot of so-called libertarians are up either one of their asses these days, I would say. It's just like a lot of other people. And that's why I think, we just gotta move on from all these politicians and these cults of personalities, just let people run themselves and govern themselves. I think we should just let everyone be their own president, and that's my thoughts there. Then we have Trump is awful, Biden is more awful. If that makes me MAGA, you've lost the plot. From Jacob Winograd on Twitter, and I posted that, and I said, I personally prefer Biden between the two of them since he riles people up less, but the differences between them are negligible at best. I really don't care for Trump, but I voted Democrat the last 2 times, and I'm tired as well, but he's clearly not going away at this point, and all the fear-mongering Project 2025 stuff, why didn't they do that during his last term or George W. Bush's terms, it's just fear-mongering. You gotta recognize fear-mongering when you see it, I think, and that's why, I'm probably gonna go for whoever the Libertarian Party nominates. Unless it's Trump, then I'll probably just write in, like Weird Al or something, I don't know. And that's my thoughts on, that issue. Then we have LP Texas response to the National Convention announcement from lptexas.org by FlimCL5563. And that was them saying, during his presidency, Trump repeatedly demonstrated that he does not share libertarian values. He hears some of his greatest hits, added $8.4 trillion to our national debt while in office for 1 term, disavowed Second Amendment, saying take the guns first, go for due process second, stated that the death sentence would be appropriate for NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden, failed to bring an end to the conflict of Afghanistan, last but no way least, spearheaded Operation Warp Speed, leading to ill-tested vaccines and the lockdown regime. And I agree with that, I definitely don't think Trump is libertarian in any sense of the word, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have The Swamp Survived, Why Trump Failed to Drain the Swamp from John Stossel on YouTube, and I posted that. And that's again, pretty much the same thing, Trump isn't libertarian, he's just going to grow the federal government like Biden or Obama, he's no different, he's pretty much no different than them. And even though, he's kind of he's much more of a blower than them, it's really the only difference between them coming down to personality, I think. And that's my thoughts there, I definitely don't think Trump is a libertarian at all, and I definitely do think, the Libertarian Party is kind of making a mistake getting involved with him in any way, but that's just my thoughts on the issue, ultimately people will just try to justify, and, yeah, so that's my thoughts there. And let's see if there's anything new. I know, it looks like there's not, so we're gonna wrap up there, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.